My God, there you are. You are alive.
Boom, 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 boom.
So the
So
mic is
yes,
not connected.
very hot and bothered by the preps. Very hot and bothered.
Okay. Well, what makes me excited is that people care about horse racing, and this is like one of maybe 10 days a year where that happens.
It's a big day. It's a big day. We're what 30 days away from the first Saturday of May. A lot of excitement. Keeneland's going to be jam packed today. It's actually a beautiful day. I'm at Monmouth Park right now, but I know about 60 miles north of me at Aqueduct, their last wood memorial. It's going to be packed there. We got great weather and we got great racing East Coast, Midwest, West Coast. It's a great day for the sport.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons we're doing this, right? Is it's time, man. There's not people that are taking this game as serious as we are, and obviously you've been a great leader of getting the voices out there for everybody. Some people quite controversial, some people less controversial, but I've always looked up to the way you handle yourself, even though you might get your fair share of crap. But um, I'm at the point now where the CAWs are almost approaching 50% of the total handle, and it's sharks eating sharks, and all the little guys are getting beat. And so I really want to reach out to the community and include everybody to have a chance to talk and bounce ideas, talk about horses. Obviously this is a game where people got to be private. You can't really say too much. So there's a lot of holding the cards close to the chest. But man, I'm here to fucking share. It's just time to share information. And so I think we can talk about all kinds of things in the industry as well. But one of the most important things that I think has helped me in, winning the World Series of horse racing and actually doing pretty well in some of these big tournaments is discipline. And my question for you is, how do you walk away from bets?
I don't. And most horse players and most that I talk to, we lack discipline. So I think it's one of the things I've learned speaking with you a few times, is to pass races. And if you don't have a strong opinion, focus on where you're profitable, focus on where you've had more success. But I think for the bulk of horse players, I sat at Monmouth Park yesterday with my buddies and we simulcasted across the country. And people are running back and forth to the terminals between every race, and you're waiting in line and you're yelling at guys to hurry up and put their bets in, and you're firing bets on your express bet account or your TVG account, and it's just like a nonstop energy rush, the highs and lows all day. But I don't know, I'd say 90% of horse players completely lack discipline when it comes to putting in wagers.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's walking a casino. I mean, people go from slot machine to slot machine. They go from blackjack table to blackjack table. There's that need. There's that fuel. That just gambling addiction. And you see an opinion and even a race you don't love, but there's that FOMO effect. And I think FOMO is serious in gambling. And it's that fear that, oh, I like that horse, I don't love him, but if I don't bet it and he wins, then I'm going to be kicking myself all day. And I think gamblers suffer with that.
Yeah, this whole paradox between making a bet and seeing it win and feeling like crap versus making the bet and seeing the horse win or lose and feel like crap. It's always this back and forth, and I think that's what makes this game so hard, and a balance between art and science. Is on one end you have to get yourself and your brain massaged to believe that a horse is going to win, and then what are his odds? Is it 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10? And then from there, refining that, getting it accurate, and then checking the board and seeing if the board's bring value. And I've been through enough pain. I've lost, God, it's probably over 7 figures now. And it's like, when you lose over $1 million over the course of your betting career, and you win millions of dollars, I've probably won well over 3, but not in tournaments. But it's like, the first 5 to 6 years of the tournaments, I mean, I was kind of a wild cannon, and I lost way too many bets for that exact reason, the FOMO.
Well, it was funny. I had when I tweeted out that I'm coming on with you, I had a couple DMs, and one of them was, "Hey, I saw your name on the leaderboard for the Florida Derby contest," and he goes, "I saw Helmers had like 5 or 6 thousand, and then the next time I looked, he had zero." And I said, these guys are animals. I said, Helmers will probably just go all in on one horse or just hammer a straight double or exacta, whereas me, I'll massage that money a little bit more and not have the risk appetite that maybe you or a lot of these tournament players have. But that's why you guys are successful. That's why, Mark Stanton and yourself and Tony Zhu and so many of the great tournament players out there that we can learn from. It's, yeah, you're going to take your shots. Tommy Massis taught me that years ago. I saw him at a Florida contest, and by the third race, he was out. And I said, "What do you mean you're out?" And he goes, "I have one big opinion. I bet it, and I lost." But you're willing to take that, and your value that you put on that is what you have, and you go from there. But yeah, it's a wild game.
I just changed the background for
I see
whatever
that.
reason. I mean, I'm just having fun here, just goofing
The
around.
price,
This is my artist side.
price is wrong. The price is wrong.
I mean, the price is usually wrong with most of the bets that we make, in the sense that we choose a price that is wrong. We think we know what we're doing, and you learn eventually to sit on your hands, like I was telling you about. And then the price gets wrong because you bet a horse at 5-1, then it drops to 3-1, and you're like, I wouldn't have made that bet.
Yep.
But to your point about the players going all in and mistakes, and I bet with extreme confidence because I've suffered enough. And the suffering, I mean, if you get, beat up by your girlfriend or boyfriend, or you lose enough on your trades, or you buy enough garbage that breaks from, different websites or countries, or you've seen the light, at some point, I'm not going to take that drink. I'm not going to do that drug. I'm not going to do that ridiculousness because of the consequences. And so I've been able to firm my hands from clicking, because it's not like we're holding cash and like putting 5 or 1,000 or $100 down. It's like we're just clicking a button that's like 5-6 grand. Here you go, send it. My the Florida Derby contest was interesting because I really did not have any opinions except for a few races, and I usually only play a few tournaments now just based on opinions. But I didn't like the Florida Derby. I didn't want to touch the Florida Derby.
Me neither.
Yeah, you didn't like it. Did you bet that race?
I did. I only had a few bucks left at that point. I had the one good race on the dirt where DeBona finished second with the 5. It was the race that Shug won. Shug with the 2-horse. What was the name of that horse? So I hit the exact. I hit the try. I would have won a lot more if DeBona's horse won. I think he was 10 or 12 to 1. So I got up to like 1,800, and I'm thinking, all right, now I can take some shots. And me being the degenerate, looking for not value, but just looking for killer value, and playing, 25 to 1 shots in the next race. And if I just hammered the chalk the rest of the way, because there were 3 races left at that point, and I'm pretty sure it went chalk, chalk, and then second choice in the Florida Derby, I would have done really well. But I'm allergic to chalk, and I'm not in this game to bet chalk, even though at certain points you have to just accept it and take it. And the Clement horse, Farbridge, was never going to lose, and I tried to beat him. And the Walsh,
I think that's fine. I'm with you on trying to beat that horse.
yeah. And then who was the other one? The Walsh horse won, the 3-horse, tried to beat him. And then the Florida Derby, I just had, I think, 800 or 900 bucks left and just bet all crazy stuff.
I think that the hard part about talking about horses is My brain knows my own algorithms, my own system, my own formulas, and the way I pick horses. And I know what I know. And I don't like Farbridge in that situation, and you don't like Farbridge. So we're aligning there. The question is, at what point would you bet him? I would never bet him. 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. I wouldn't touch him, right? Because at that point, something's wrong. So
That's the problem, right? If you're getting too much value for a horse, you think, "Uh-oh, I'm on the wrong side of the argument here." So where did you end up going all in and losing? Do you remember?
yeah, so what did I do? There was a turf race in that on that day, and I'll tell you the story, because the story is actually, it's, well, whatever. It's fine, but it doesn't really bother me anymore. It bothers me for like about 2 minutes. Um, but then there's a whole nother layer of like, okay, what else would I do? And the only reason I bet like that is because I don't have another opinion. So if I had other opinions, I would spread it around. But back to the Far Bridge thing, I did not like any horse to beat him. And that's why I didn't bet the race, as I felt like he was over bet, but I just couldn't do it. And if I have to spread on 3 or 4 horses, then that's not what I'm doing in a tournament. And I really dispel the horizontal the race bets anyway. So I'm not into like the pick 4s and pick 5s really at all. But in the Florida races, I think there was a turf race going off in the early stages, probably 5, 6, 7, something like that. And I guess what I'll tell you is I was trying to get to a certain number, and when I was trying to get to a certain number, I just I got played. I got played because the odds went down on the horse after I made the bet. And so, you wait till last minute, and you got about 5 seconds to cancel, and I was so scrambling to make sure that the bet went in, and I didn't refresh to see the odds drop, so I wouldn't have made the bet. And it's a little painful because the horse was lower odds, and I don't like betting horses like that. And then the only other situation I was looking at involved a couple of price horses, and one of them won, of course, but it wasn't like it was a fundamental mistake, because the two price horses I could have taken in a different race, the collective probability of those two would have beaten the probability of the horse that I had chose. That's why I was a little frustrated, is in addition to the odds drops. So
Makes sense. So because I know people ask me all the time, and when Dylan Donnelly made his run in the NHC, I got multiple DMs and texts. We'd love to hear from Dylan or see what Dylan uses. A lot of the everyday handicappers out there, especially on Twitter, are looking at names like yours and Dylan and Tony and Tommy Massis and all the guys that have had just great success. And they always ask me, what do they use? What are the tools that they're looking at? What are some of the, are they replay guys? Are they time form guys? Are they thoroughgraph guys? So for people watching out there, what is your go-to when you're looking at the horses? Is there a platform? Is there a system? Do you use your own? What can you share for the folks?
blood, sweat, tears, ancestors, God. I mean, there's a reason I don't drink at the racetrack. I don't think I've drank at the racetrack in, like, well, I'm talking about when I'm betting, like in 5 years probably or so. I mean, I
Smart.
can have a cocktail afterwards, only usually if I win, because I like to create the incentive. If I don't do well, then I won't drink. I don't even drink that much anyway. I think alcohol is really hard on the brain if you want to get to be a master at something. So I'm a little bit of a freak, health freak, you name it, like math freak. Um, it's very hard to explain. There's like multiple parallel universes. There's the brain, the left side of the brain that's got the engineering degree and blah, 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 that can help me understand math and get to a place of putting a probability on a horse, or range. It's not even a number. It's not like one number. There's boundary conditions. So if a horse is not going to go past a certain number, then I won't bet it. So there'll be like a boundary condition.
Okay.
And then the tools and of course, I'm going to be ambiguous a little bit here, but horse racing is common sense. Like, I think because maybe in, you know, hundreds of hours of yoga and meditation and, healthy foods, and probably ran more than 10,000 miles in the last 10 years of my life. I just am very clear about what I perceive as the truth. And obviously I'm one, and the CAWs would destroy me in the game of trying to lose 5% to get an 8% rebate or higher. Like, that's a whole different muscle. Um, so I would say that there's a blend, like a triage of things between understanding how fast a horse is. Like, what does that mean? Like, everybody loves a number. Oh my God, it's this number. This is the number. The number is this. There is so much subjectivity into a range for a horse. So if you ask me, or if I ask you, how good are you at tennis or golf, or like making a decision, being a good father? Like, you've got a couple kids, right? You have your good days and your bad days.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult to limit a decision based on a number that is so it's based on the forces that ran in that race. It's based on the times of the race. It's based on the surface. It's based on the other horses on that same day. It's based on so many other little factors. So I think that's the fundamental thing that I would start with, is that there's a huge flaw in the thinking that, number one, it's a figure that is the most important thing in a horse race when you're trying to get to value. You can use figures to predict that, certain horses in certain price ranges are winning at 25 to 30% and 30 to 40% and 5 to 10%. But that's not helping you make money.
So when's the last time you bought a DRF at a track?
No, I mean, you mean a newspaper?
One of these fancy,
Oh,
fancy DRFs. When's the last time Christian Hellmers
I like
bought a
this.
DRF at a racetrack?
I actually, so I do like newspaper because I grew up in Del Mar, and I was going to the racetrack,
It's the
when I
smell.
was, yeah.
It's the smell. It's a little bit like it brings you back to the good old days.
Well, if you don't have tattoos, you might as well get some ink on your fingers. So you
That's
get,
very true.
might as
Very
well
true.
you got the ink fingers. I used to collect. I had probably 1,000 old racing forms in my garage, because I used to collect the charts and the forms, and I eventually had to throw them away. Fire hazard too, but they that's nostalgia right there, for sure. Did you
Big
did
time.
you did you I mean, I do everything digital, but I do like to I why I like the racing form is because I go to the track and I can give it to somebody, and I can give them a little, like, you know, I'll give somebody a session in 45 seconds and say, look at these 5 things. Don't look at anything else.
Okay. I like it.
I mean, what do you look at when you look at the racing form? What do you focus on?
Try to honestly, especially in the past couple years at CAWs, try to find things that the gurus and the maniacs like you and the CAWs and the computer players can't pick up on in a racing form. And there's certain things that I feel like the system players miss in just raw data versus that kind of statistical and the percentages. So I know I talk to AHP Drew a lot in our group chat. We, on Twitter all the time. I'll even ask trainers every now and then, hey, handicap this race for me. What do you think? And they won't see things that don't jump out. Like when a filly runs against the boys. Most computer players and CAWs aren't going to notice that a filly ran against the boys and now is running back against the girls. It's my favorite angle. It's my go-to angle of all time. But I feel like 90% of handicappers will miss it. They won't even see it because they'll be staring at the bold, the bold buyer speed figures. They'll be staring at the jockey, the trainer. They'll be staring at the class of the horse. and they won't notice that little F with a circle that wasn't there in the last race. And then I like to see things that others don't. I think that's the whole point of handicapping, right? It's the reason we watch replays, is that the chart note might say four wide early or bumped or steadied, but when you go back and watch the replay, it might have been a lot worse or a lot better than it was. So I think that's the whole puzzle piece of handicapping races on a daily basis, which is fun, which is why a lot of people watching and listening, they have group chats, they have buddies, they're on Twitter talking about horses, and they might see one thing and you see another, and it's a great conversation. It's more than betting a basketball game. Duke versus Michigan. It's there's so much more to it than the average bet we make. Going to a blackjack table and say hit or stay. There's percentages, there's smart plays, etc. But in horse racing, it's just a huge puzzle that you try to piece together. And when you're right, there's no other feeling like it in the world. And when you're wrong, you remember it all night long.
When you say you're wrong, do you mean you made a mistake, or are you saying you just your horse didn't run well?
I think both. I think both. Whether you made the wrong gambling error and decided to key a horse on top when you should have just boxed him, or you boxed it instead of just playing it straight. And then there's obviously the error of, man, I really missed that. I didn't see that in the replay. I didn't see that in the PPs, and I overlooked it. And then that horse rolled, and you're thinking about it all night long. Like, shoot, I really should have had that one.
Yeah, the haunting is real. I definitely think there's so many pain points in this game. It's just endless. I mean, you can have something where you don't see an equipment change on a horse. You don't see a workout. You didn't watch a race. You didn't realize somebody in a race had an excuse or came back, or if, you didn't forgive something. And then there's also like you're like probably one of the more connected guys. Like, I don't even know, you probably, and by all means, I'm open to talking whoever you want to talk to, on the show, and just riff about anything. But there's nuance that, like, there's a guy that one of my mentors, he Gibson Carruthers, who is a guy who's a really, really outstanding pick six player, but he's a thinker and he was an art director. I think his art director mind, he's the father of Matt Carruthers from television, and I like those guys. They're good people, but Gibson was always willing to go against the grain, and contrarian is the only way. And that's the thing that you're talking about, is trying to find these ways to be contrarian against top players, against CAWs, against the public. But like, there's this paradox with everything. It's like, okay, if you're going to be different, which is what you need to do, like, how different do you go? Like, are you being different just for the sake of being different because you're trying to scrape and find value in a race where you shouldn't? Like, there's just so many,
There's a line, right? You get too cute, and then you kick yourself for being too cute when you said, man, this was really the horse. I tried to get too cute and get a 30-1 shot home when I should have just, stuck with my original opinion. I think that's the challenge everyday horse players face, and it's tough. It's a tough game.
Well, it's like, you can't get greedy. You can't get too like antsy, or I can't remember what's that word
you're telling gamblers not to get greedy, and that's hard. That's hard.
Well, gambling's a really low frequency in general. Like, if you think about it, it's like the idea behind gambling is, I'm going to take a risk, typically a chance based risk, to, like, maybe unfairly win money. And that is that's fundamentally flawed in the philosophy of being, a deserving man, woman, good karma person. Like, why should you win on this 30-1 today? Like, who are you to say that you deserve this? What, because you saw something that nobody else saw?
That's right. That's right, brother. I mean, there's ego. It's gambling. There's ego all around us. I mean, it's you want to be the one cashing the ticket at the end of the race. You want to be the one on Twitter posting a monster pick five or pick six or whatever it might be. And I think to that point, Christian, and I think it's serious. I think it's with sports gambling, and I think it's with clearly horses. Social media plays into that, and I think a lot of people get sucked into the social media road where, you may have a 2-to-1 shot that is a slam dunk, and you're going to put $1,000 on it, whatever. But so many people in this day and age want to get the big score, let greed and their ego on social media play into it. And instead of just playing the $200 to win on that horse, they're going to play a $200 double into a 6-to-1 shot in the next race so that they can have this big score to share on social media. It's like the same game parlays in sports, right? Nobody on Twitter is posting $1,000 to win on the Bears versus the Niners. Nobody cares anymore. It's not good enough. All of a sudden, anybody could have that. It was a coin toss. Instead, it's who had the 5-team same game parlay with rushing yards, passing yards, the Bears and the over, and they bet $200 to win, 4,000. Now that is post worthy, and the sports books have done a great job marketing it, and it's like candy for the young gamblers. And you're seeing these winning same game parlays and these huge odds and bright lights, and they get celebrated and they get thousands of likes. Where the guy who's just betting the single team 1,000 to win and he may win 10 straight, nobody cares. It's not good enough anymore. The 2-to-1 shot in horse racing all of a sudden isn't good enough, and it should be. But I think social media and the mindset of the current day gambler it's really changed.
I mean, there's so many things that I want to speak to about what you're talking about, dude. That's first of all, this whole society is just whack right now.
It's whack. It's crazy.
This is this is. I mean, imagine going from a caveman to a wheel, to managing aqueducts with water, improving sanitary conditions, like moving into building homes, moving into like organized religion, moving into vehicles, telephone, internet. Like in the history of man, what we've accomplished in the last 200 years is like to the 50th power of the entire humanity before just the last like 100 years, maybe the last 50 years, right? So it's exponentially out of control. And that means in terms of things like attention, you're talking about, first of all, why would we need attention? Like, why would we need to go on Twitter or on social media and post anything? Like, what's the point of somebody saying, look at me, this is my, I mean, I can understand if you have a kid and you want to, that's cute and, people want to love on that, but like, I don't know. I struggle. I don't post too much, but every once in a while I'll post about music because I think I like to encourage people to go see different music and things, but it's a crisis. And obviously we're seeing that, young people get really distorted in terms of reality and dealing with conflict, dealing with with real situations. It's sad, but gambling is a very dangerous force. It's a very, very interesting place. And then you talk about winning, losing, winning money you don't have, winning like when you shouldn't win, losing money you shouldn't have lost, stealing, lying, not being accountable, watching yourself do it, drinking. All of it is very dangerous. So that's why I think I'm always the guy that's like, stay away from all the distractions. And when it comes to stroking the ego, like do you think like anybody wants to hear me post about doing anything well? Like it's just not going to look good, right? It's just going to be
right. Like I think people now, for the most part, I mean, they probably like seeing people lose more, right? Barstool puts out content, and they like to see when Portnoy loses $100,000 bet more than when he wins one, right? You'll get more interactions under a post where he loses a monster bet than when he wins. But I think now with horse racing specifically, it's how did they get there, and I want to be able to do that or have the potential to have a big score, or, you know, learn from people like you when I play in the contests and not make the pitfall mistakes that we're all making, to get better. I think there is that sense of how can I get better as a gambler, as a horse player. Um, you know, where am I just falling short, and where can I get better? And like I said, just talking to you in the past, you know, year and a half, the idea of, you know, well, shoe, if you stink at, you know, 25K dirt races going 6 furlongs, why are you still betting them? Like, it makes no sense. Like, why would you invest your money and have a strong opinion when 80% of the time you're wrong in those races? So now it's like, all right, you're right. So where my money now gets allocated is I'll take a stab in the dark for 5, 10, $20 on those races, but then I'm really going to harness my energy into turf racing and stakes and allowance races instead of the bottom level claiming races where my ROI lifetime is probably negative 3,000%. So um, I think there is a sense, especially on horse racing Twitter, where can I get better so I can make those better decisions, to whether it's money management, whether it's strictly handicapping. I think the more information that's out there, the better. Um, you know, and we talk about, like, recently in the news with TVG, you know, we grew up with TVG. I mean, I started watching TVG in college in 1999, 2000 at Maryland. And it's been with me now, 26 years now. It's going to be gone. And yeah, the sport has fallen some, so we can blame the popularity of horse racing for that to an extent. But did TVG get us to that next level? Did it really talk to the gambler enough? Did it help? You know, did they ever have Christian Hellmers on there? Did they ever have the Tony Zoos of the world, the Dylan Donnellys? Like, there needs to be more out there for the players, because 92% or whatever that number might be of horse players losing money, I mean, that's a bad number. You know, not saying that bringing certain people on would, you know, decrease that substantially, but you know, people get frustrated, and I think the more information that's out there, the more we can learn from people like you, the better it'll be.
Well, I mean, I want to help you, brother. So I don't want to see you. Obviously, I'm your competitor in some ways, but not. It's not like you're in all these tournaments against me anyway.
Yeah.
I'm using this experience to help myself grow as a man, to learn more about how to help others, but also to help people from a place of just pure, like, it's I detest the fact that there's no place to go to speak to discipline, to give like more detailed structure on price. Like, calling it the price is wrong is really important, because there is no decision without a number. And you can have a range, so it can be multiple numbers. But if you want to get better, then, like, if I'm going to get better at anything, I got to find people that have the capacity and the experience and the intuition to share the blind spots, you know, in the other, right? For me, I've had a lot of blind spots with people, and just, you know, getting, you know, the rap of being in my own world, selfish, and just being, you know, introverted in a way. Um, and I respect that, because, like, they're not wrong. And but I needed certain experiences to allow me to only connect with people that I feel are in my orbit. Like, actually, one of my nicknames in college was Planet Helmers, and I was always on my own planet. But, you know, there's always gonna be people that hate you, and there's always gonna be people that love you. Whether you're, you know, the president of one party or another, like, everyone's gonna hate you on one side of the, and you're gonna be doing everything right for half the people, half the people wrong. Now, in my world, I have a very small, tight circle and a very, very tight set of boundaries, because I am looking to be a master at different parts of my life, health, wellness, love, which by the way has been a struggle, which I love that it's not easy, but it's like one of the hardest horse races ever. But the the idea for you now, because you're ready, it sounds like because we've talked and we've had this cool friendship that's growing, and I really do look up to you for your ability to connect with everybody and hold space for everybody. And there's a lot of wacky characters out there that you can get along with, and then yeah, you push buttons, I push buttons, but you push buttons in a way that I respect. And I'm sure I'll push some buttons that are going to piss people off, and you will do the same. And hopefully, it's all water under the bridge. But what I'm trying to get at is you're almost in this position, which is where you're asking, and you do this a lot. You're curious. You're genuinely curious, right, about improvement.
Big time, big time. I mean, I know that. I mean, we talked about it the other day. You go 1 for 3 in baseball, you're in the Hall of Fame. I mean, as a horse player, if you win every 3 races, you're pretty darn good, you know? So I think for all of us out there playing the sport, I love talking to, my buddy Gallo here and Bobby at Monmouth Park. They're pure doubles players, pure doubles and pure thoroughgraph guys. And I learned from them, how to simplify bets, take a strong opinion, and not spread like I tend to do. I tend to overspread, and I've learned that over the past few years. Um, but there's so much that we can all get better at. And when it comes to putting our, hard-earned money into the machines or into our express bet accounts or TVG accounts, there's that, you know, at the end of the year when you're looking at your balances and when you're looking at your deposits versus your withdrawals, it's only natural for us to say, all right, where can I, you know, minimize my losses and maximize my wins? And so I think horse players all over the world um, are trying to get better at their craft. And I think that's why we have so many tools, right? We have over the last few years with equine edge, with optics, with buyer speed figures now, which have come so obsolete and probably less of a tool for horse players. But there's so many things out there that are new and coming out, and now with the CAW models and the value like you talk about. And I know there's a guy at Monmouth Park here who's one of the best handicappers I've ever met in my life, and he's probably quirkier and crazier and on a different moon than you are. But Brad Thomas is one of the best public handicappers in the sport, and Brad Thomas talks about value every time he makes a pick. And when you see Brad walking around and it's, oh, who do you like in this race today? He's, well, I like him at 4-1, but I can't bet him at 5-2. And in the past, I'd be like, well, why? He's still going to pay $7 or so. But over the course of a long haul, that value just doesn't equate for him and for people like you. And that's important because, I mean, I have a ton of horses picked out today that maybe 10 to 1 or higher. And I'm going to bet them no matter what. I'm going to bet them if they go down to 6-1, if they go up to 15-1, because I'm stubborn up here and I'm hard headed. And if they win at 5-1 and I don't bet them, I'm going to be pissed off. And if they float up to 25-1 and I don't bet them, I'm going to be even more pissed off. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a genuine feeling out there in the horse player community to get better.
It's funny. I know very little about you, but I do know that you're a Sagittarius, and not that
Yes.
that's going to be important in picking a horse. Astrology is not something I've tapped into because most of the horses are like Pisces and Aries anyway, and Tauruses. But, or I guess technically they're considered that. But
It is the year of the horse.
That is, and that's why this is the year to do something to help this. I mean, this sport's going to die, dude. If I don't do something, if all of us don't do stuff to help understand, all the horse players, the true horse players that should be in this game are playing fantasy football right now. That's what they're doing. There's 10, 15 million people playing fantasy football, which is using the same part of the brain, turning it over, trying to predict something, trying to show off to their friends, stroking the ego. But they're there, and they're there for so many other reasons. They didn't grow up with, going to the races. They didn't have access to the free data that comes, about in professional sports and stuff. So I guess transparency comes to my mind when you speak to some of the things you said. Transparency within your betting, figuring out a way to understand, like you said, are you bad at 25 claimers? Are you better on grass? Or I think that's a really, really important issue that needs to be addressed in the industry, individually, but for players, like where are they at?
Mhm.
Why aren't people aware of how good they are at things? I mean, it's interesting that a lot of that stuff is hidden in the shadows. Um, and then when you talk about public handicappers too, first of all, if you had to pick a horse in every race, like that's, I mean,
It's impossible.
I'm not going to be that much better than anybody, doing that. It's just too tough. But choice and discipline and it sounds like you're ready to take on like a new practice to get yourself profitable or more profitable or less, like losing slower. Obviously there's years that you can have big years, bad years, depending on what kind of bets you're playing. And that's up for you to decide. You might be somebody that's just like, I'm going to bet, $5,000 a month or 1,000 a month, 100 a week, whatever it is. And I'm going to, at the end of a year, bet 50 grand or risk 50 grand. That's a different thing too. There's risking and there's betting, because if you're betting money, on average, you're going to lose 30%. The average retail players losing now, maybe more. So,
Mhm.
that's another thing to think about is what is the actual risk of your bets. But I think setting some goals, and throughout the shows, we can do that. We can set some goals and get you like tighter and tighter, and we'll track this. I think that's like really important. Like I'm not
Uh,
going to see a horse unless I have a number to it in terms of like, what's the chances of this horse winning? Because how do you know? How do you know when someone's good? How do you know when someone's elite? Like, you see someone's name in a tournament that's finished in the top 5, or they've won the tournaments. I mean, if I'm clicking at roughly like 9% in big tournament cash tournaments, what does that mean? It's like, what is the ROI on that? There's like so many things that need to be explained here to understand the tiers, because like everyone's in a different tier. And I think that's the fun right now is for me, is trying to understand who are the better players. And then how can you get players from, tier 3 to tier 2, from tier 2 to tier 1. And a lot of it just comes back down to desire. Like if you're at that point where you like, I don't want to make the correlations to gambling and alcohol too much, but like if you're gonna like, if you're drinking, getting in a car, or you're drinking and having problems with your partner, or you're getting in a car saying things you don't wish you didn't say to your family, or just a stranger, at what point do you slow it down and take responsibility for this amazing gift of life, right? And to me, like everything is a gift. Being able to somehow, some way, my dad took me to the races, who was a wild card, crazy long shot guy that really didn't know what he was doing, but badass engineer, Germany, like super old, died 20 years ago from cancer, but taught me everything I needed to know about standing for myself and walking away from, narratives that don't exist, that are all just arbitrary. Like, why do we have to do the things? Why do we have to bet a certain way? Why do we have to bet, like the most standard ways? Like, why would we not bet, 2 races out of 9 and walk away from 7? Like, what is in our what circuitries that says that's a bad idea? Like, and that's where I am at a point in my life where I challenge everything, and I think that's helped me. So I want to help you like get a little tighter with some of your stuff, and we'll go through some races today, and we'll do that
yeah.
for the transparency, because I think the only way people learn, and the way I learned, I had some great mentors, with, Quinn and Brohammer, and even Tackage showing a few things, Gibson Carruthers. There's like so many people that I owe thanks to. But it's like Michael Phelps getting to win 8 gold medals, like, or, you incrementally going from, to gain, zero point 0.1 seconds or to 0.2 seconds, the amount of work it takes and the experience and the practice it's hard, and most people won't be able to do it. Most people will just, I'm just gonna bet he doesn't know what he's talking about, or who knows, some people might piggyback on what I'm saying and try to run with it and make it sound like, that they know what they're doing, because, it's like, imitation is the biggest form of flattery. But I guess I want you to get yourself clear, as you have your goals. So if your goal is to, um, you know, be a good win better, okay, let's talk about that. If your goal is to, try and hit, multiple races, like I wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you want to play that way, I'm gonna be a hard ass on you. So I think that's one of the things that you're gonna get from me in this kind of exchange is I'm gonna be, kind of like some tough love. Every favorite is guilty until proven innocent. And so if you're gonna talk about a favorite, bro, you better come in strong, like strong, because you talked about giving salutes to somebody hitting 1 out of 3 races. I can't hit 1 out of 3 races, and I could potentially pick certain horses that can win it 1 out of 3 times, but, you're talking about a very small sample size, and that's where there's these hard rules that I think people need to stick to when they're playing the races or they're betting the races for real, and I wanna invite in the new generation of players to experiment with this game. It's great. It's taught me everything about myself, love, life, and God, everything. It's just a spiritual quest, and that's where for you to even volunteer and be humble enough, obviously, who cares if I've won stuff in the past. I mean, it's the energy between us that's cool, but I'm here to give you some ideas and kind of hold you accountable. But that's the thing is what we're talking about is accountability. I am going to make mistakes. I am going to be wrong, and i'm I don't have a problem being wrong. What I have a problem with is over 10 or 20 races being wrong. Like if you look at some of the ways that people bet in these tournaments, especially, in the Breeders' Cup, which is, to me the holy grail, and even finishing twice when it was the scores are much lower, to me doesn't mean anything. I haven't done anything yet. But you can tell who bets scared. Um, it's I'm really big into consciousness. I don't know. Do you ever read any books on consciousness?
No.
The
Us
every
East Coasters aren't big into the consciousness, all right? That's for you West Coast California boys, all right?
Well, there's levels of awareness, I guess, is another way of saying it. It's like what do you want to like how what do you really want to know? Like there's ignorance is bliss. I think Raging Against the Machine said, if ignorance is bliss, then wipe that effing smile off my face. It's a paradox though. Sometimes ignorance is good. Sometimes you don't want to know what somebody's doing. You
True.
don't, whether it's love or your family, and everyone's got good and everyone's got a lot, the stuff that you don't like about them, and they have their secret lives, and you only get to see a certain glimpse of what they want to show you. But like consciousness is is um is also a paradox. I mean, every time you think you know something, you don't know it. You might know something around certain people in this certain context, and for you're stepping into a new place where you want to learn more. I'm happy to give you some rules. You don't have to listen to me, and I don't expect you to. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to see, as we do this, I'm going to talk more about things to avoid rather than necessarily things to bet on. I don't necessarily want the karmic linkage between me giving out a horse all the time and then people betting on it and putting 5 grand and the horse goes from 10-1 down to 7-1 or all that
Sure.
crap. But I will say this, we can go through this and we can have some I would say love it's and like it's like, who do you really love and who do you like? And that doesn't mean you have to love the horse to win. You can love that the favorite's going to lose. But why don't we talk a little bit about the preps today, because I know that people probably don't want to hear me just ramble about consciousness.
Dig
Um,
in.
yeah. So
Where do you want to start?
I, why don't you pick a race and I'll bring it up, and then I'll go to, and you can walk me through your assessment of
Do you
one of
want
the.
to stick just to the preps, or do you want to stick any stakes at Keeneland, or just preps?
Let's do the preps, and then we can
Okay.
talk about a race or two at Keeneland. Keeneland's cards definitely got some juice to it.
Solid. Yeah, the Keeneland card is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, the bluegrass, like we've talked a lot about it in the group text this morning. It's not the greatest bluegrass you've ever seen. Class
Wait, when
presidents,
when when
obviously.
was there a good bluegrass? Because I'm kind of struggling to see a good bluegrass.
You might be right. You might be onto something. I mean, class president's not running.
I saw that.
Um, you know, I loved the monstrosity in a maiden race last week, and all of a sudden, Jenna Antonucci's bringing this horse up to run in the bluegrass. Um, Talkin probably needed the last race. I think Talkin's a use today. I think Gargan is going to do everything he can to get a Derby horse. Means the world to him. And this horse had form last year that completely fits.
Okay, so let's start with just setting a goal for the race.
Okay.
So
Sure.
is your goal, you talking about, so there's two worlds, or there's more than two. There's who's going to win, like the probabilities of each horse in the race that you can calculate, because certainly there's some horses that are very difficult and you may just have to say, I don't even know how to put a number on this horse. So there's calculating the chances of each horse to win, and then there's the idea of value relative to your numbers, in the sense that if you chose a horse at 25% that should win 1 out of 4 times, which is 3-1, you're going to then make an assessment, right? Like your goal would be, if I get 4-1, I have a little bit of value there. I might like that bet. If I got 5-1, I might love that bet. Is that all right to kind of think of it kind of in those kind of terms?
Yeah, but like, so did you handicap this race?
Yeah.
All right. So why don't you walk through how then you look at it? Like, who is your, if you don't mind sharing, like,
well, I want this to be a two-way street. I want this to be about us going through your goal. So my lens is, I would look at this race first to see, is there value in the win? Is there value in an exotic? So if I look at both of those scenarios, I would say that there's not really value in the win for me. But there's a layered approach, right? Because when we talk about it, there might be a horse I think that's going to win the race. And then if the horse goes to a certain point, then it's like, I don't want to bet against that horse. And then it's like, but I could, because obviously if a horse is getting over bet and I like him, I could take the contrarian position and go, well, let's assume it's not his day. And let's go into like Bayesian stuff and think about, okay, well, what's the other scenario that's likeliest to happen given those contexts? And I think it's very difficult to ever really argue against anybody that's going to take a horse above 10-1. So I'm not going to challenge you on 10-1 shots and above. It's really hard. And last thing I want to do is talk you off of one of those horses. So for me, it's win in first. So looking at the win right now, if you look at this race and you said, all right, who, and obviously, like, there's two things. Try to uncover your truth based on what you see. Like, what would be the odds that you think are what do you think he's going to go off at, but what do you think are the true odds of the horse that you think the horses are going to win, and then tie it to your selections.
So let me ask you, because the first thing I think most handicappers look at when they look at a race, especially a big race like the Bluegrass, is from a value standpoint, right? Is we immediately go to the favorite, who in this race is Further Ado for Brad Cox. Mm-hmm. And we say, is this a good favorite or is this a bad favorite? I think most handicappers will kind of start there. Is that something that you will look at right away?
Yeah, I think you need to understand, if there's a 20% takeout on average,
right?
You need to take a horse that's 50% if he's even money, and you need to say he's worth, I don't know, 30%. And if a horse that's 50% at even money that you think is 30%, now you've effectively canceled out the takeout. And so now you're playing a fair game. But if you cannot beat a favorite and cut a favorite in half, you basically have no chance of making money and being profitable. So that's the first point I would speak to, is thinking about where can you find a favorite that you believe is vulnerable. Now that's the strategy, but that doesn't impact the actuality of the race. So when you're looking at a race like this, you just brought up a favorite who was likely to be, I don't know, what do you think he'll go off at? Did you look at the odds overseas?
I mean, I have not. With the scratch of the 2, I'm going to say he goes off at 6-5, 7-5.
Okay. So let's just call it even money just to make it easier. So, if he's got 50% chance or 50% of the money, what would you say is, what do you think his chances are of winning? And he's going off around 5-4 or so in just basic odds over in Europe. So yeah, I think even money's fair to say. So what probability, if right now the public is saying 50%, out of, if the Bluegrass was run 10 times, how many times does he win the Bluegrass?
I'd say 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5. Okay, so you're in alignment. So you think 4 is 40%, 5 is 50. So in that case, you're basically in alignment with the public. Okay, so then go to the next horse and see if you can find another way to. And again, we don't have to talk about why. I mean, we can do that in a second, a little bit, but like that's your starting point. That's your intuition. So then, what's the next favorite or two that you want to talk about and see if you can find the probabilities in your brain for them?
Well, Reagan's Honor is going to take a ton of money today. A lot of people are on Reagan's Honor. So that's kind of the second horse now that if I'm going to pick who I like in the race, I know I have to beat Further Ado and Reagan's Honor. So if we say Further Ado is going to go off at near 6 to 5 even money, Reagan's Honor is probably going to go off at 5 to 2, right about the morning line, maybe a little bit lower because a lot of people are on Reagan's Honor. So maybe Reagan's Honor goes off, I don't know, 9 to 5, 2 to 1. So then you're going to have two heavily bet horses in the race. The third choice is scratched, which to me is going to say I'm going to get value on a horse that I don't like outside of those two. Would you agree?
Okay, so what's the probability of Reagan's Honor now? What do you think? Right now, you're saying he's going to be 2 to 1. What do you? How many times has he went out if the Bluegrass was run 10 times?
Oh, that's a great question.
You don't have to be right. It's just more about what does your brain tell you based on what you see and what
2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. Okay, so you've got 2 out of 10 on Reagan's Honor, 4 to 5 out of 10 on the Ado horse. So so now you've got 50%, or no, actually you've got 30% left to play with. And so to give you an example, if I were you, I wouldn't bet this race.
Okay.
And I say that because you have identified a situation. If Reagan's Honor has a 20% chance and he's going to go off at 2 to 1, that's you're saying he has about a 20% chance. 1 out of 5 is 4 to 1. So 20%, and you've got 50% the other way. And Reagan's Honor is likely to go off at, 5 to 2. You're already losing. The whole pie is already messed up because you've got 20% takeout, 50% is going to Brad Cox, and then you've got 20% going to the Reagan's Honor. There's no you're already covering 90%. So unless you're going to bet a horse at 30 to 1 or higher to win,
Right.
I don't think you should play this race. So you might have a 30 to 1 that you like, or you're saying, hey, it's chaos, they're 3-year-olds, things happen, fine. But I want to give you a barrier there, and that's why I say that, because if you said something else, like if you thought the Brad Cox horse had a 20% chance, and if you thought Reagan's Honor had a 50% chance, then I would be, okay, this is like a potential all-in tournament horse that you might want to put it on. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So the reason I say that is because you must disagree with the public and the CAWs. So your whole goal in life is to be an outcast in a good way and decide when everyone's going to stay in the building when it's got, you smell smoke, and you're going to be like, no, I'm getting the F out of here right now because like I've seen some crazy stuff. I saw like a lead singer of Pantera die. I've seen like all these other crazy things. It's like, no, dude, I'm not going to sit here and watch, chaos. So being contrarian is not human nature. Everybody wants to comply. That's funny, I'm wearing that hat. Everyone is natural to fitting into the mold because they want to be liked. It feels good. They don't want to have like the pressure of being scrutinized or talked about. I mean, you get to a point in life where it's like, am I people pleasing for myself because my soul needs to be people pleasing because that's the mask I wear, or am I doing it because genuinely I really care about people and I really care about their feelings? And it's always a paradox, but I don't want you to be a people pleaser unless you really, really do agree with the people. So in this case, you agree with the people and you hate on Reagan's Honor a little bit, and maybe your numbers are wrong, like in the sense I'm putting you in the fire and I'm saying, hey, like what are the probabilities? So Are there any price horses that you would want to bet on at like 30-1 in that race, or can you just say that I'll walk away from it and not put a dime on it?
I like 2 horses in the race. I like one a little bit better than the other.
Okay, so
I
first
like
thing you need to tell me is, what are the chances out of, since we're talking about long shots now, if the race was run like 50 times, how many times start with the first one? How many times does this horse win out of 50 times?
it's so hard to come up with that number though. Like, how do you come up with that number? It's
But
hard,
that's the game.
Like
That's
I
the game you're
like
playing.
Great White. Like I
That-
like Great White.
That's
I'm
the
on board
game you're
with Great
playing,
White.
though. But Shu, that's the game you've signed up for, to put your hard working dollars in. What, it's unfair of you to disconnect from the challenge at hand. If you're going to be a pole vaulter, you're going to have to somehow understand that you're going to have to suspend your belief that you're going to flip yourself and land and not break yourself in half. So you have to break your brain right now and say to yourself, how can you put a number on Great White? Like, how many times out of 50 bluegrasses, he'll definitely win once, he'll definitely win twice, right? That's fair.
Sure.
Maybe once is fair. Now it starts to get into 2 or 3 or 4 times. So your biggest question is, does Great White win 2, 3, or 4 times out of 50, and why?
It's a good question.
And
Out of
there's no
50,
pressure.
I'll say he could win. Like, I think it's a tough one because he's coming from the synthetic. So synthetic form has to transfer over to the dirt. I think it will. The workouts have been good. I like the way Enos spaced this horse out. I think he's coming to the race in great shape. So out of 50, I don't know, maybe he could win 10 times out of 50.
Okay, that is excruciatingly off.
Okay.
And I say that as a guy that is into math and loves, like, nerds, but
Right.
that means that he would win, 20% of the time. That, based on what you just said, that means that he would win the same amount of times the race as Reagan's Honor, because Reagan's Honor, you said 20%. Great White winning 10 out of 50 is 20. And that's where this is the problem that horse racing has not addressed. Our brains are not wired to put numbers on horses that are part art and science, and designing all this stuff it's a mind F. It's like, how do you do it? And you brought up two things that are important in making your decision. You brought up synthetic, improvement, switching to dirt, and workouts. So you're saying to me that out of all the horses trained by a guy like this, who's, when a horse is young, going from synthetic to dirt in a stakes race at 1.125 miles for the first time, with the improvement and some good workouts, that to you translates into winning 1 out of 5 times. And that is fundamentally flawed, not only just based on me, but that based on the market. And I want you to start giving yourself a new lens to analyze long shots, and to say to yourself, just assume that a long shot never is going to win more than 1 out of 10 times in general. And then it gets really hard, because now you got to decide between 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%, and to say to yourself, can your brain even do that? Because, to be honest with you, or direct, I don't know what Great White's odds are based on my stuff. If I really turned it over, I can put together something. But you're struggling with the question because it's very difficult. And then the next question is, if it's so difficult, why do you want to bet on it?
I think the value is going to be there. As a horse player, I'm going to get all of 12-1 or higher, maybe even higher than that. And in a field where I feel like the 2 chalks are beatable, I feel like 15-1 is fair value.
You're actually right, because of the sense you said, and I'm not saying you're not right, but I'm saying your assessment of giving a horse 10 out of 50 times of winning at 20% and seeing 15-1 is why you like this bet. And I respect that.
Yeah.
So if you say 4-1 is what you think he should be, is what his odds basically should be in the race, and you're getting 15, that's a bet. And so first of all, I don't want to talk you off of your math either. I just want to make sure that from my standpoint, you're betting on first time mile and eighth, synthetic to dirt for the first time, improved race in synthetic, and workouts, and a trainer that you think is spacing workouts well. Like those are the 5 factors basically that you're saying translate into a 20% chance.
Okay.
And that's hard for me to swallow, but that's me. And there
Right.
might be other things in that race that also give you, and that horse, that show you some things that are attractive. But the main core argument that you started with, which was Brad Cox 40 to 50% and Reagan Saunders around 20%, you have to, what you're basically saying too is that that's the whole race, because 50% to Cox, 20% to Reagan's Honor, and 20% to this horse. That means every other horse in the race should be 40 to 1. And that's where the math gets hard to this is why this game is deep, and you got to go deep into the corners to understand it. But I'm going to I'm going to ask you about the other horse real quick, and then we can wrap it up and go on to the next race. But what's the other horse that you like in that race, you said?
Talking is interesting. The Gargan horse on the rail.
Talking. Okay. And what percentage do you give him?
I mean, he probably has a 10% shot.
Okay, so the public agrees with you. He's morning line 10. Looks like he's going to be around 10, maybe a little less. So I want you to just take on the practice. If I'm saying 10%, 10 to 1, 11 to 1, whatever, and I'm not getting like 15. So you need to set the marker too of like how much value is value. You could say, oh my God, I think he should be 10 to 1 and he's 11 to 1. I'm going to bet him. If that's your goal and you want to make a sliver of a sliver, then that's fine. It's your choice. It's your entertainment value. It's your dollar. Fine. But if you're talking about talking, then I would make sure that you do it with a very hard set rule. What is the odds that you would not bet talking at? If talking was 10, would you bet it?
And I think that's the hard part too for horse players, because let's say you, like I'm giving him a 10% shot. I like him on the outside here. And he opens up at 5 to 1. You're saying, well, there goes my value. My value on one hand is completely shot from what I put him at. But then I'm saying, and most horse players are saying the same thing, oh, he's taking a lot of money. He must be really live. Maybe I should bet more on him. And I think that's something that we all struggle with when we look at the races every day.
This is a very interesting concept that no one's going to really understand. Yeah, there's
talking opens up at 7 to 2. Well, now what goes through your mind?
So let's go through this. Like, this is important because, first of all, okay, it's Bluegrass Day. So this is different than a normal horse day. If a horse opens at 6 to 5, 7 to 5, 3 to 2, 7 to 2, 5 to 1 at a 10 to 1 morning line, look at the pools. There's probably going to be less than $20,000 or $30,000 on the pools. So if somebody, whether it's smart money or dumb money, put $2,000 or $3,000 on a horse, that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing to me. Now, yeah, the CAWs might look at it and say, oh, early money means this or that or whatever. And maybe sometimes the CAWs are playing games and trying to get people to bet on horses. Oh my God, I want the signal to be on this horse, so I'm going to put money on it and then bet against, it, slam it the other way because I can figure out the value exchange. So don't believe the hype. Like you have your brain that it said 10% on talking. Now, you might be right or wrong. I'm going to agree with you, actually, that it's probably closer. It's probably more like 6%, 7%. And again, the only way you're going to know is you have your models. I have my models. You have your brain. I have my brain. I can use a lot of math to create different scenarios and look at things. And it's all about the long run. And you have to figure out a way to track your stuff. And so to me, like, using certain labels is important. And you said 10 to 1. You talked about the complexity of the odds going down. So in your eyes, if talking goes off at 7 to 1, and you said that the horse should be 10%, and he's at 7 to 1, and there's a minute to post, does your probability change from 10%? And now, because he's a little bet down, does he go from 10% to 15?
I mean, for a lot of horse players, I think they would think that. Don't you?
I don't think that way.
You would keep him at that 10, your original mindset. Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's certain situations I wouldn't agree with that statement. But in this situation, this context, yes. So that's the game. That's the game that you're, it's easy to turn off the brain about odds and math and, oh, I'll just bet and I'll just get it out and get the dopamine spike and see what happens and post on Twitter if I'm right, or even post on Twitter if I'm wrong and get some laughs. It's like there's better ways to get dopamine spikes, by the way. Like there's
Fair point.
But so I want to just recap that race: 10% on Talkin, 40 to 50% on the Cox, 20% on Reagan's Honor, and then the other horse you had was White's Honor.
Great
You had
White.
it at Great White. You had it 20%.
Yeah.
So that right
Yeah.
there encompasses 100% or roughly. So
Okay.
if you want to bet Great White at 20%, and even if you're wrong in the sense that it's not that high, let's say you're off by, and let's say it's 10%. Let's say Great White is 10%. Okay.
Okay.
If that's his odds in terms of the real world or my world or somebody else's, you're still going to get a good price on that horse. So you might get 15 or 20. And so to me, I do recommend, based on your brain, you should play that horse to win. Nothing else.
Okay.
About the win. Well, you could play other things, but I'm saying, given the odds in that race and knowing the things that are, now you have the ability to play some tries with that horse too. Because if you think the horse is 20%, which is really high in my eyes, and even if he's 10% and he goes off at 20, you can play some other things. You can play some trifectas and you can play some exacta, well, probably only tries and probably a win bet on him. So
Okay.
that's the kind of way I would look at the race. Even though I disagree with you a lot in that race.
Who's your top pick? Who are you going?
Well, see, again, top pick is the wrong phrase for me. I would say, what are the odds on the horse what is the probabilities of the horses in the race? And I would say I think the Cox horse is probably a 30% chance. So that opens it up. That's a favorite I would take a stand against today. I love taking a stand against that horse. So that's a love stand. Like that's a love it stand against. And then in that race, I would say the most logical winner is Reagan's Honor. He may improve here. He just seems like he's getting better. And I would say he's probably got a, 28% chance, something like that, somewhere between 3-1 and 5-2. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say 5-2 is probably about right. 5-2, maybe even closer, a little closer to 2-1. So I would say 28 to 30% is where I would put him.
So then just to ask you, so if now Reagan's Honor opens up at 6-5 and takes all the money.
So let's talk about what you're saying. 6-5, first click, right?
Well, let's just say like he opens up the favorite and continues to take money, and him and Further Ado go off at about the same price. Let's say they both go off at 8-5. They both take a shit ton of money and both go off at around the same. 8-5, 9-5, whatever it might be.
So 8-5.
Will you still play the horse?
Absolutely not.
You won't. Okay. See, that's where like most horse players can't do that. In our minds, like we like a horse, you Reagan's Honor, but now all of a sudden he goes off under that value line for you, and you'll walk away from the race. 95% of horse players can't do that. You know that.
The hard part is just the odds drops, and sometimes you don't know.
The late, I know, because then you think that, and then they cross the first turn, and all of a sudden he's 5-2, and you're.
Yeah. So the point is, to me, if I would get, there's this hierarchy, 7-2, 3-1, 5-2. So if I think the horse should be between 5-2 and 2-1, there's no bet. That's what he should be. That's the law. If he goes off above that, then when do I consider to like it? When do I consider to love it? And if I'm going to say it's a like it scenario, then I would say, yeah, he's 3-1. And I don't even know if I'm going to get 3-1, which is the problem, right? So there's that scenario. If he goes off at 7-2, it's probably a love it situation. If it's 5-1, I'm not going to bet it at that point because something's wrong.
See, so then there's a cap on it, the other side of it, right? You see, that's what's the fun part about this sport, and just the moving components. But you're right, and I think most people would agree with you. If the horse opened up at 5-1, took no money, you'd be saying, "Uh-oh, something's wrong here."
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is people don't understand that, and it's a concept where, if you walk into a used car dealership, which I haven't been in forever. And a car that's like a nice looking Tesla is like $6,000.
Yeah, so, something's wrong.
I mean,
Something's not right.
maybe there was a murder in the vehicle. Maybe there's some like, some like title that showed some weird, maybe there's an axle issue that they're not talking about,
Right.
or maybe they do. So my point is like, the truth is not going to require suspension of common sense. So like common sense says this is the market that, people that are betting 5 billion plus a year on are setting the rates, the prices of these horses. If you're going to disagree with that, you better be right, and you better have a good reason, and there's a whole art to that. But like even real quick, City of Troy, who was in the Breeders' Cup, when you
Yes.
saw that horse, first of all, I didn't like that horse for so many reasons. You heard all these guys, especially talking about this horse looking great, and
Yeah.
and I'm then you hear like some of the horse people say this horse looks more like, it doesn't look
Turf
like
horse.
the Justify, yeah. And it's like
Yeah.
in its breeding, and it's like you hear conflicting things, and to me it was just it was a mixed signal. So that was a horse that was clearly not a good play. When you saw the horse going off at like 9-2, it was confirmation that
Yeah,
clearly
for
that
sure.
this horse is not going to run. So that's a situation where you might say the horse has a 20% chance, and then when you see those odds, yeah, it's probably closer to 12.
You drop it. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So that's that. And again, the rest of the race you can play any price you want. But I'm just saying, like my stand would be against the Cox horse in that race. And you're not taking a stand against the Cox horse. You just agree with the people, and you're like, yeah, the people are right. It's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't really care for any of the other horses in the race, and I don't think I'm going to get the odds on Reagan's Honor anyway. So it's just like, it's just a situation where that is the default horse because of the Cox situation. And again, I don't have to be right in that race. What bothers me if a horse goes off at 5-2 or 3-1 that wins, and and it's not, there's not even a tournament in that race, so it doesn't matter. But it's a race where, like, I mean, I'm watching it because of Derby implications, but I'm not sold on anybody in the Derby yet. So it's going to be a long. Okay, so what other race did you want to talk about?
Yeah, so before we wrap up, if there's anybody you love on the card anywhere today, if you want to point it out, I love a bomber shocker in a turf race. Actually, the race before the Shakertown.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I love a horse in Shakertown.
Okay.
Now, so talk me through this. So I handicapped the race. You know me, I love layoff horses.
So the first thing you need to do is go to the favorite. Tell me the probability. How many times out of 10 does the favorite win this race, or the top two favorites win? Go to that first.
In a turf sprint, the probabilities have to be a lot lower. The morning line favorite is who? The 8 Litigation for Lynch, who's a really nice horse, right? Litigation's a closer. It's a turf sprint. Has won 2 straight at Gulfstream, but closers and turf sprints, the probability of them winning, especially 3 times in a row, is got to be low. I mean, it's got to be.
I wouldn't phrase it that way, though. I wouldn't group it like that. I don't know if you can make a blanket statement that favorite closers on the grass at Keeneland coming from you're not even talking about coming from Gulfstream. It's like, I think you have to be cautious of using the word closer here, but I understand what you're saying, which is that this horse is probably, not near the same probability as the Cox horse. So out of 20 times or 50 times, how many times do you think this horse would win this race?
If they ran this race 20 races, maybe he wins maybe 4.
20 times, maybe 4. Okay. So that's 1 out of 5, 20%. That's kind of very much in a line. Okay. So you're kind of agreeing with the public, which, and again, another problem is seeing the morning line will influence you, and then you'll think, but not saying that's what you're doing, but you have to sometimes look at it cold so you don't get influenced. But okay. So you don't have any value in beating against him unless you felt like he had a 10% chance, and you don't think he's going to win 2 out of 20. You think he's going to win 5 out of 20, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. So I think he's beatable, bottom line. And I love a 20-1 shot.
Okay.
Now, if they ran the race 20 times, I think my horse could win 2 or 3 out of 20.
Okay. Well, there's a big difference between 2 and 3, but let's call it 2, and then we might go up with it. So,
Okay.
okay, before you do that, is there any other horse that you hate in this race that you literally think is that's
Yellow card, who I think is going to take a lot of money, the McCarthy
okay?
and Pratt horse, who's 10 to
Okay.
1, who's probably going to go off closer to 5 to 1.
Okay. So you think the horse has what probability do you think he has of winning? Like again, is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 5%?
I think 1 out of 20.
Okay. So that's a really good point. If he's going to have 20% of the money, if he's going to go off at 4 or 5 to 1, and he's going to have 18% of the money, and you think the horse has 5, that's difference is 13. So now the race is, so that's probably what your subconscious is telling you is, I hate this yellow card horse, and this litigates average. So now I can find some value. And then you have your horse that you think has probably got a better chance than the public does too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So which is your,
I love Clock Tower on the rail. I love the other ward.
okay.
I
So
love first-time 4-year-olds. I love the layoff. I love the workouts. I think
Yeah.
this is a totally sneaky horse. And I think he's going to get the trip. And I think people are going to ignore him. So I'm going to get super value on this horse. Now, it's not a hammer bet for me, but it's definitely a horse that I'll put, 20 across on. And even if he runs third, I'm going to make money.
Okay, let's start with all of this. Let's unpack it. First of all, what are his chances of winning out of 20 races again? You said 5?
I said maybe 2 out of 20. So yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, 2 out of 20. Okay, so let's call it 2. That's 10%. So he's got a 10% chance. He's currently 20 to 1. Okay, so first question is, if he goes off at 10 to 1, are you still going to bet him?
No.
Okay.
Well, I may, because then that money's going to tell me something. So yes, I would still, but maybe less, or get creative with more exactas and other stuff, because I'm not getting the win value on that horse. So I still would, but differently.
Okay, so how are you going to do that? Like, give me an example. He's 10 to 1. He's 10 to 1 in the race. The race is about to go off. He's 10 to 1. What are you betting?
I'm probably gonna. It's a good question. I'm still gonna bet him, and the 10 to 1's gonna tell me that I'm probably right, because I know this horse doesn't have a big name jockey on board. I mean, it's Wesley Ward, but this horse is a bomb, so it's gonna kind of confirm to me that I'm probably onto something, which could be a little bit scary, because I'm gonna lose value, and then overthink it because he's getting bet. So actually, if he went off at 10 to 1, I'd probably bet, and I might even bet more. I lied to you.
Okay, so this is the complex that we face, right?
Right.
It's like you get this confidence. Oh my God, I'm right. I know this special thing. I'm in this inner circle. I know about this religion or this, cult thing, and oh my God, I know about this government conspiracy, or and again, there's some truth to, like, the origins of lots of things, but you have to step away and be like, am I just addicted to being in the in group because I know things and nobody else knows, and this feels really good and sexy because now I know these, I saw this, and he's going to get the trip, but okay, now smart money's on it. So that feeling, I'm going to ask you to, like, just take off that jacket and just
Okay.
and not wear that, and try that as a just a practice to completely suspend it influencing you in any way right now for the next month. Just walk away from that and stick to your math, because if you're saying 10% on that horse and he goes off at 10 to 1, you are going to lose money in the long run if you bet on that horse to win. And if you have another price in the horse that's like a crazy long shot you want to bet an exacta box with, go for it. But you have made a stand that litigate is where he should be. So if he's 4 to 1 and your horse is 10 to 1, you bet that exacta. You might be able to bet the exacta with your horse on top of litigate. That's probably an okay bet. You probably can't bet it the other way. And you can't bet on the Pratt horse, the yellow card horse. So that's fine. So to me, I want to just kind of conclude this race then. And so you said this idea of getting the trip. He's from the rail. he's got speed. He's not that fast early, and there's this unusually horse on the outside that's probably could easily get in front of him. Like, how are you justifying the trip, and how are you justifying the 10%?
I think he's going to sit maybe third or fourth on the rail, and that's where I want to be.
But why
I
third or
think this
fourth? This
horse,
horse has never been less than first or second at the first, 20, 25 seconds. And the only time he was off of that, on a dirt route, he just backed up. So this horse is a need to lead, and they're going to send this horse, don't you think?
I think coming from longer races, I mean, I have to believe he's going to sit third or fourth on the rail because I don't think he's
Wait a
fast
minute,
enough
you're
to be
talking about? Are you talking about Clock Tower?
Yeah.
His last race was a 6 furlong sprint. It was 2025, but he's not coming out of longer races in his last race, though.
Well, I know, but he was a mile and a 16th the race before that. He's gone a mile. I mean, that was his first cutback he was going a mile, mile 16th, mile 16th, and then his last race was a sprint.
Yeah. So
Wesley had him going longer.
So he's coming off of a layoff, and it's Wesley Ward who typically gets his horses ready to pop, and this horse is probably going to be. So you actually, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but because of the distance back in foundation and coming out the layoff, you think Wesley Ward is going to kind of experiment and maybe tell this it's too hard to get the lead, just sit back and try to sit in the early flight. Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think he's going to be fast enough to get the lead, especially with that outside horse. So if he sits third on the rail, I'm happy with that. That's where I want him to be.
But how can you be happy with it when this is a horse that his only wins have come when he's wire to wire and he's in front of the field?
Agreed. It's going to be something different for him. But I think this horse can do it. And I think coming out of those longer races, he's going to have the energy late to have some late kick. I think first-time 4-year-old is a huge angle for me. The pedigree's there. The workouts are there. And I don't think he's fast enough to get the lead in this race. Do you?
I don't know. I think it's not a question of speed. It's a question of whether or not the jockey is just, and the instructions are going to be, can he break good? And if he does, just go. I think there's a very high likelihood that they try to get the lead. That if he's not first or second, then I think, and again, I'm not sure if he's fast enough. But what I'm saying is, it's one thing to not be fast enough and still tell the trainer, tell the jockey, this is the only way we can win this race. Send. And I don't know enough about the jockey to be able to make a good assertion. But also Bear River could go to the front as well, possibly. I don't think so. But I think it's going to be a situation where the jockey is going to try to break well. If he breaks well, and after about 15, 20 strides, he looks around. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go now because no one's really fast enough except that horse on the outside or those two on the outside or whatever. There's a couple on the outside. So I don't know. I guess either way, I don't see this horse having a chance, above 10%. So I can subscribe to 10 or somewhere between 5 and 10%. So to me, it's not a horse I would ever say no to, in the sense, like if you're getting 15 or 20, I would say I would never tell you not to bet this horse. There are certain situations where I would be very cautious, but I just want to, again, alert you to, if the horse goes off at 10, I just don't see a purpose for you.
Don't see the value. Understood. I get it.
So I'm trying to be a hard ass in a way so that you can, you can have I mean, I think the horse, if he doesn't get the lead, I think he's done. So to me, if the horse doesn't get to the front, it's trouble. I won't say done. I'm saying I think the horse should probably be somewhere around 15-1, something like that. Maybe I'd say
he's going to be 30-1 or higher.
I think he'll be like 25. So to me, it's a situation where it's low probability. This is a very hard race. It's not my specialty. I have no problem with that horse, no problem whatsoever. So I hope he wins. I hope you have money to win on him. And but I would also caution you not to bet the win play show stuff, dude. Don't do that.
I know. I get so much abuse, but when I play long shots, I feel like I have to. I get it with the under 10-1. Why are you playing across the board? But when you're playing 25, 30-1 shots, and they run second and pay $18 in the middle, or $10 to show, to me, it's not a bad value bet.
Yeah.
But I understand the 10-1 and under, I need to stop betting win play show. I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, just stop it. Just like it's like make the declaration right now that you won't do that. Please.
I get so much abuse on Twitter for
Please.
playing win play show.
Please.
You love
Please.
to play show bets.
So
Come on.
what do you lose if you do that? Like literally, what happens to you when a horse comes third once out of
Because when I
10
lose
times?
by a nose and I'm like sitting there like, well, I picked a great long shot. I got nipped at the wire by a nose, and I get nothing for it. Where if he's 30-1 and I get nipped on the wire, and I got 20 across the board, at least I'm winning money.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you to bet the exactas then. Bet instead of betting
Well, yes,
10 to place, bet five $2 exactas with the horse on top.
Right.
You're telling me you can't pick if the horse does come second.
That's true.
You telling me you can't pick 5 horses or 4 horses to put on top of this guy?
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Don't get
That's
lazy,
fair.
bro. Don't get lazy.
Very lazy. Very lazy. Well, listen, we're getting close to post time in New York.
Yeah,
Do you want to give anybody out? I mean,
I think we've covered, enough stuff. We'll keep it going. We can, if you want, we can roll it back tomorrow if you want to kind of
Okay.
go over the day. And then we can, we can do it tomorrow if you got time in the morning, and then we'll just kind of talk about some of the things that happened. But I think just focusing on those races is fine.
Okay.
I did want to say that real quick that the Santa Anita Derby real fast. I thought that race was was hard on the win end to beat. I thought that there was this is a race where Baffert's going to get in some ways respectfully like the one will probably get smashed, Cherokee Nation, and he's a good horse. I respect him. I think there's this is a type of race where it gets hard to bet. It's hard to bet because you don't want to bet against Baffert, and it's uncomfortable, especially when this is only races that he really cares about. So his horses are going to be geared to this the whole time. I thought there was some interesting horses that could improve here. I thought that Vitruvian Man and Robusta could both get better here. I don't necessarily know if I would bet them to win. I have to do a little more work on it, but I think they're interesting. We'll see what the scratches look like. Did you have any thoughts on those two horses in that race?
At first look, I didn't like either one of them. I thought Patente was the better Baffert horse out of the two. But, So Happy, who you would on paper looks like he'll be on the lead, setting the pace. Apparently the morning works. Glatt's been having him sit off. I don't know much if that's just chit chat or
I don't necessarily. And again, maybe it's just an intuition. I just don't know if So Happy is going to go to the front. Mike Smith isn't like a hard send. He likes to just kind of put the horse in the race and just make it close. I think knowing Baffert, he's going to send one of his two horses, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cherokee Nation, doesn't get sent or Patente doesn't get sent, because Baffert, if he's got two in the race, he's going to want the lead, I think, with one of the two.
And see, I think Robusta is going to get sent. I think Jaramillo is going to send Robusta, right?
Yep, probably.
So that sets up a scenario where either you think one of them can clear, and that would be Robusta for me. I would think Robusta with Jaramillo, because Jaramillo is so darn aggressive out of the gate. If I had to put my money on a horse on the lead, it's going to be Robusta.
I mean, I think the key here is, in order to get into the Derby, like Cherokee Nation needs to run first or second. So I think Baffert needs that horse to win the race to have, a good chance. So he's going to do everything he can to get that horse to win the race. Robusto, I don't know how many points does he have now, finishing second in that race. Is that enough to get in, do you think, or no?
Probably not, right?
Like, what are the points? I don't even know what they are, but
I don't even know, but I would think he'd have to finish at least second or third today.
Yeah. So to me, I don't think Robusto, if you need to finish second or third, I don't think you necessarily send. So I don't think Robusto is going to go to the lead. I think Robusto is probably going to do what he did last time and just try to squeak his way into the Derby, because there's no reason, I think, to kind of take that risk here in my view. But also the workouts don't seem that fast, so I haven't done as much work on this, and I don't know about the workouts on So Happy holding back. But I would imagine that Baffert sends the 1 and the 2, or probably the 1 and the 2 is going to be right there. But I thought that the 4 is just, he's just getting a little. That last race, is very interesting, and I think that horse has more upside, and I also think Vitruvian Man could kind of squeak in there, at the end of the race and get, third or fourth or something to potentially
Okay.
help. And maybe
Okay.
Vitruvian Man could, these horses, these 3-year-olds, my God, the Santa Anita Derby always just blows my mind with who's won this race. So I find it very intriguing that the confidence to put this horse in this race like this is, is also, could be Derby fever. It could be, but my point is, I'm going to get 30 to 1 on Vitruvian Man. He probably has about a, 5% chance, and that's fine. And Robusto to me is probably got a 10, about probably a 12% chance, which is 8 to 1. So if Robusto goes off, above 10 or 12, then it gets interesting. But other than that, I didn't really like anything else on the entire day and at Santa Anita. So,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this was fun, man. I had a blast doing this. I think this will be great for horse players to kind of, build that community up and hopefully, learn things and get better on a day-to-day basis. And then look back and see where we made our mistakes and where we did well. But it's a lot of fun, man. The price is wrong, but the price is always right for me. The price is wrong for you, but the price is always right for me. So we got to work on that.
The price is not right for you betting place and show bets either. And if you keep doing that, we might have to figure out a way to like flog you or something, because this is just totally.
I get enough abuse on I get enough abuse of that on Twitter as is bet win play show.
But see, now we're tapping into like some of your shadow work here. The fact that you're getting abused and you like it, like, it reminds me of Eurythmics. Some of them want to be abused, and
but then
maybe,
like I said, when your horse gets nailed, but like you said, the exacta is wheeling it on the backside versus, with a couple favorites or sensible horses on top, that makes a lot more sense. So maybe it is a little bit of laziness more than anything else. And it's just a bad habit more than anything else, because I've been doing it since I was 5 years old.
but if you have these habits, my good man, like, what are you getting out of it? Like, and it's a culture shift for you to like, be like, no, I'm not going to get this attention for making the mistakes. And I know there's probably some weird familiar pain that's like, oh, I see, like, I know I'm better than that, but it's just like, it's like that whole, like, I don't know. It's just, it's a frequency that is not going to get you to the higher levels that you deserve, because you're capable of betting the exactas with that aqueduct horse in the Shakertown. Right. In second, you can hit the exacta and the tries. You can, instead of spending 10 or 20 bucks or whatever, 30% of your money, 60% of your money on the place and show, just pick 5 horses in first and then play some tries and just experiment.
Agreed.
But if you don't do this ever, and if I can't get you to do it, then you're going to be 85 years old if you make it that far, and you're going to be doing the same stuff, and you're going to be like going,
85. I need your vitamins and your yoga stuff out in California to live to 85. I'm getting text messages from the boys downstairs. Where you at?
Yeah.
No, but this was really cool, dude. Like, this is fun. I think moving forward will be beneficial for not only me and you, but just for the horse players watching. We'll get it out there on Twitter for the folks so that they can watch and rewatch. But I thank you for bringing this platform up and for being a member of Price is Wrong. And hopefully we get some good winners today using my old school black ink DRFs. It's been fun, dude.
Yeah, just have a kombucha, eat some raw food. Don't get sucked into the whiskey and all the adult stuff that's gonna distract you from winning. And you know what? When you do win, because I have a feeling you might hit something today, because I thought your takes were interesting. Just give yourself credit for being different. Like, that's one thing that you've shown me here, is that you can be different. So be different, but be disciplined. So
good advice. Thanks, brother.
Well, have fun out there.
Enjoyed it, man.
We'll follow up tomorrow.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right.